responding. And I believe the questions with respect to the 2020 vision plan, I'll leave to the planning. That's not my area of expertise. The questions with respect to stormwater management, I mean, I just want to reiterate, we can have different people kind of respond to your questions, but I just want to reiterate the jurisdiction of this board is to consider the application as it's been presented. You may disagree with the conclusions that have been drawn by the applicant's professionals. You may even disagree with the conclusions or recommendations that have been made by the board's professionals, but those professionals who are qualified experts in their fields, those are the professionals that the board has to rely on, the testimony from everybody, to weigh it and give a decision on that opinion. So the issues that you've raised with stormwater management, there are other things that go into that, such as grading, topography, things that we don't get into detail here because that's not the board's expertise, that's their engineers' expertise. So the board relies upon their engineer to say, I've looked at the topography, I looked at the grading, my concerns are this, X, Y, and Z. Mr. Raymond's initial review letter was rather, I dare to characterize it as scathing when it came to the initial drainage proposal for the project. The applicant essentially went back to the drawing board and redeveloped it with recommendations from Mr. Raymond, and now we have a drainage proposal that he feels satisfies the requirements and the concerns that have to be satisfied. So to answer those questions about, specific questions about drainage and traffic, I know the traffic impact study took into consideration the future build out, all the things that have been approved and that are in the process of being built. It took into consideration future build out. So that I can tell you because I read that in the report. Now, the traffic engineer, he has a manual, there's an industry-wide manual that everybody relies upon to get their numbers. And that's where they come up with their numbers. I mean, that's the industry standard. That's where that's where he gets his numbers from. So that's where the board's traffic engineer, he gets his numbers and does his review based upon the same standards. That's what happens. That's the nature of this process. This board, these members are volunteer members. They may be appointed, but they're volunteer. They don't get paid to be here. They don't get trained in engineering or planning or traffic issues, drainage. Their job is to rely upon the testimony and the recommendations of the professionals to address the issues. So they're going to take into consideration all the information that's been provided tonight on this application as it's been presented, and they'll make a decision on that.
Nice, thank you.
I mean, I can't really, it will be here, and to the extent that other people want to comment, that's fine. We'll be here for 2 days addressing each of your specific issues point by point. I just think overall, that's the process that happens that a lot of people don't understand because we happen to do this all the time. And fortunately for you, you're not forced into a position where you need to be here all the time. So you don't have to read the ordinance or the regulations or the standards in each industry. And I don't profess to know them all because that's not my area of expertise. But I do know based on experience what I've learned over the years as to how the review comments are drafted, how the drainage is put together, what they look at. I have a general understanding. But I'm going to defer to Leah on the 2020 vision.
Well, there were just several questions that we can just provide a quick factual answer to. Okay, so one that I noted was there were questions about the lights along Main and Maple and the condition of those. And this applicant is replacing the ones in front of this site. So currently those lights are owned by the township. I believe the township has to both maintain them and pay the electric bill on them. They're little by little, we want to have all of them along Main and Maple replaced, but this one developer certainly isn't going to replace all of them. But we are having them replaced with PSE&G. They're going to have a similar look to a historic type of light post, but they're going to be PSE&G approved so that they can be owned and maintained by the utility company in the future, but they'll be installed by the developer in front of this site. There were a couple people asked about affordable housing. There will not be any affordable housing included as part of this development. In terms of actual deed restricted low or moderate income units. That is still a factor in the township overall for those who follow the affordable housing saga. But this applicant is going to provide a payment equal to 2% of the equalized assessed value of the project. And that payment will be deposited into the township's affordable housing trust fund. and then we, the township, will utilize that money to make units affordable in accordance with our spending plan. So that's a quick answer to that one. And that's set forth in the redevelopment plan. What else could I mention from a planning standpoint?
Parks and Recreation,
Um,
open space issues.
Well, I think there was some comments about the site design, and I think the site design is what it is. This is a downtown area. I don't think that really requires a specific response, except for that this is a downtown area where I think a higher density is appropriate, and there are appropriate places for public spaces. And I agree there should be some in the downtown area overall, and the applicant is making a recreation contribution in support of such spaces.
With the intent, the township's intent is to use that directly in that area. That was what was included in the redevelopment agreement with the applicant.
And the applicant has recreation amenities on site for their tenants, and then there'll be some contribution to make improvements in the area overall. And then, Mrs. Walters, you asked me to touch on something on the 2020 vision plan. I don't know what I can really do. I don't want to provide a presentation on the 2020 vision plan at this point, but the 2020 vision plan provided a broad brush overview of how the township envisioned the evolution of a few specific areas that would be impacted by the removal of the Marlton Circle. And this was the Marlton Village was one of the areas, and there are a few goals specifically set forth in the 2020 vision plan related to Marlton Village. And in fact, there are a few of them that I think are advanced by this proposal. And again, the 2020 vision plan is a broad brush planning document that is adopted as part of the master plan. So it's not that it has specific objective standards that this would or wouldn't live up to, as long as it's in keeping with the spirit and intent of the 2020 vision plan. And I defer to Mr. Student if you have anything else on that.
As one of the authors of the 2020 vision plan, I will tell you one of our goals was to make Marlton Village, the old historic area, a more vibrant community. And one of the ways to do that was to transform and make things more walkable. Certainly, residential apartments enable us to do that with the connection to the CVS and the shopping center immediately adjacent to it in back of the proposed plan that Mr. Davis has given us. People would walk to a restaurant, walk to a Trader Joe's, walk to Starbucks. That's part of it. We also found from listening to people, and if you don't have it and you want a copy, we have copies here in town, and Mrs. Jama's office has lots of them. And this goes back to 2009 and 2010 when we did it. But the comments that people wanted was a vibrant downtown and a main street. Right now, and I'm reading from actual quotes that people made. Marlton's just a pass-through. One of the people said to us, residential downtown will make it better. Isn't that smart growth? And when you consider what we're talking about doing and some of the other things, this is the most telling comment. I don't want to have to leave Marlton for a main street. And people told us that they like the residential look and feel of Collingswood and Haddonfield. And I see some of you shaking your head. What I will tell you from examining Collingswood and Haddonfield and Hamilton and Princeton and probably 14 or 15 other communities that we visited both in person and pictorially, that people told us it takes time to get to what we want. And I think the plan that we saw from Mr. Davis advances the general principles of our Vision 2020 study. And we've been sitting here for many years waiting for redevelopment and rehabilitation. This is the first one that we're seeing come to us. So I applaud it. I also heard some other people in the audience attest to the ability of Mr. Davis and his company. I will tell you, when we ask people to identify places they like the most, the promenade was number one on the list. Okay, it's pretty amazing that Mr. Davis developed that. I also would submit to you as a shrewd businessman, which I believe him to be, you would not build something that you had no chance to rent to people, right? That would be fraught with problems, or you would not cause flooding. If I'm correct and put on my tax hat, you were probably the largest landowner in town? All right, so privately, right, okay. Some of the public ones don't pay taxes, but you do, sir. So I would also submit that this is a gentleman who has a great belief in our community, not only the Promenade, Weston Club, Sagemore, the Allison Shopping Center, which, by the way, you came before this board not that long ago and totally impressed us with how you redeveloped that. And also the Allison Apartments, what did you say, you have over 2,000 apartments? Yeah. So I look at this as keeping with our Vision 2020 plan.
Mr. Chairman, do you mind if I address a couple of other items? I took notes as well. As far as the public utilities, the applicant also does have to go to the Houston Township Municipal Utilities Authority. To my knowledge, there is water and sewer available. There was a question on handicap accessibility and adaptability of the units. There is a requirement for that in the building code, so as it needs to meet the building code, they will be provided. Leah addressed the affordable units. There was a question on number of school children, although that is not something we're supposed to address here. I believe the number that we researched for the Gateway Apartments, that is 57 or 58 units. I believe there's 2 high school students in that development. Just as an example, the number. There was a question on traffic light at Center and Maple. If that would be necessary in the future, we have to petition the state for that. This is in the historic district, and although Mrs. Pizzato did not think it met historic, sorry, some of us did, and we felt that the look did have a historic feature to it, and we would work with Mr. Cogan's office to do that with that look and with the townhouses in the front. Again, any of the Maple is a county road. In the beginning too, there was a question about improvements to Main and Maple. Just a couple of years ago, the county improved the intersection at Main and Maple. Like it or not, they did improve it. They changed the timing of that handicap ramps. So there was some, and that was listed, I believe, in the 2020 plan, and it didn't address it as far as the county goes. They are both county roads. And I think overall that addresses what I listed that could be addressed.
Anybody else wants to address anything on the drainage side, Mr. Raymond?
Yes, I think we have taken the drainage very seriously, worked with Mr. Collins to get that worked out. The drainage that we are generating, that they are generating on this site will move away from the Arrowhead community. It will not be creating any additional problems that are or exacerbating any of these additional problems that are there today. In fact, what we wanted to make sure was that the facility that they built didn't create what we call a tailwater, a rise of the water back, which it's trying to get through piping to where it can be finally disposed. This has been, their design has been changed in order to allow that to be surface drained down through the shopping center basin that will be modified to accommodate the capacity that we are losing in the basin on Maple Avenue. I'm confident that the changes to the plan will not impact the upstream, what I call the upstream area. There was a comment made about the administration building and the basement. There was a gentleman in the Evesham Board of Education by the name of Joe Tobins, who was the maintenance director for many years. He had us in that basement. We built or designed the sump pump and drainage system under there, because this whole area is underlain with marl or heavy clay soils. And some of this is very local. Sometimes you need to penetrate with a building. This is a concern that we would have, if there was a basement in this building, that the water can go right down and just pond within that. We also did, and Mr. Student, I apologize to you for this as a school board member, but we did the remediation plan for the school bus garage.
Sorry?
And that plume is trapped in the marl soil in that area, and it moves to the east, away from the project site. And we have recovery systems in there that we are getting as much of the gasoline out of that soil as the soil will yield. It will have no impact on this project, in my professional opinion. And I think that it was a good idea to bring that up, and there was a concern, but we had to address that when we went through our original review.
Anything else?
I think that covered the situation. Questions?
Sure, just a few things. Regarding there were some questions regarding the level of service on the roadway. The level of service really varies. It's not something where you just have a singular level of service for a roadway. It depends on what portion of the roadway you're talking about, what intersection you're talking about, what movements, and what time of day. So it really does vary. The applicant did do a fairly comprehensive traffic analysis, which we did review. The level of service on the road varied really anywhere from a level of service B to level of service F, given a certain times of day and certain movements. So rather than go through each and every single movement, I think pretty much most people in the audience, most people here can have an idea of what level of service F is and when that occurs. As far as there was a question about I guess the mathematics on how many trips there are and what time and how many apartments and how many people live there. Those numbers are not really sort of pulled out of thin air. They're derived from the trip generation manual, which does get updated on a regular basis, and that's based off of studies that are conducted really throughout the country and throughout the region. And the actual trips, just to clarify that we were talking about, were peak hour trips. So that's not to say that those are the trips that are produced all throughout, through the whole day. Those are the peak that you would expect, one peak hour. Throughout the whole day, a button like this will generate about 5 to maybe 5.5 trips per unit based off of the statistics. So that's pretty much what I have there, and I'll be more than happy to answer any other questions the board may have.
Thank you, Mr. Dutch.
Before we bring it back to a vote, Mr. Goldstein, do you want an opportunity to make a closing statement?
Yeah. Thank you, I appreciate it, and I will be brief, and I do very much appreciate all of the time and attention from the board and from the community. And I'd just like to thank the community for coming tonight and for staying tonight. I think that we all recognize that growth is sometimes painful. And our hope is that in the long term, that the benefits of a planned development for the community will bring more positives than detriments, and that the overall community will gain from the redevelopment of this area and the positive effect that it will have in catalyzing further redevelopment and growth for the community in general. A number of the concerns are with regard to the impact of this particular project. And I would just note that there are a number of potential uses permitted for this project within the redevelopment plan. including professional, medical, and business offices, which I think if this site were developed in that way based upon the criteria of the redevelopment plan, could potentially have a much more significant adverse effect on the community than the residential project that is being proposed. With respect to the relief that's being sought this evening, excuse me, the variance as to lot 12.01. As noted earlier, lot 12.01 is within the Evesham Crossroads Overlay District. The ordinance specifically provides that the standards of the district shall be relaxed by the planning board to achieve purposes of the redevelopment plan. In this particular case, the variances that, the design waivers rather, that we are seeking for lot 12.01 all relate to existing structures and improvements. There is no new structure, no new improvement proposed on that lot. It is simply a necessity to seek and secure these design waivers in order for this development to be able to proceed. And when Township Council adopted the redevelopment plan, they specifically noted that the inclusion of this portion of the Marlton Square Shopping Center is necessary to create a viable developable area along South Maple Avenue as envisioned by the redevelopment plan. So that the modest relief that is being sought is making the redevelopment and the positives viable. I think that was what was intended by Township Council in the ordinance, and I think that's why Township Council gave the specific instruction to the planning board that the standards should be relaxed in this situation. With regard to the waivers being sought for the proposed new lot 16.02, it's just one waiver, and it deals with an issue that is simply just not practical to comply with. By providing the planted landscaped island in this particular location. The testimony indicated that the requirement would impair the ability of the developer to maintain the area. It would impair accessibility for emergency vehicles, and the developer has mitigated the inability to be able to comply with the design standards strictly by providing the stamped asphalt in lieu of the curved island. And with regard to the advice provided to the board by your own professionals, I would venture to say that I don't recall that there is a single comment that this applicant didn't agree to. Every recommendation that's been made, every request that's been made, the answer has been yes. And so I would, again, bring that to the attention of the board. And finally, I'll end where I started. At the beginning of the hearing, my first comments were that we were provided a roadmap, and that roadmap is your exhibit A1, which is the redevelopment plan. And I think the question before the board at the end of the evening is, did we stick to the designated route on that roadmap? And I believe that the testimony of our witnesses, the presentation by your own professionals, has indicated that there is the redevelopment plan gave us the road to follow and that we have followed it, and therefore I believe that the applicant is entitled to the relief that it is seeking this evening. Thank you again for your attention.
Well, we're going to do the, we're going to bifurcate the vote, correct, Mr. Goldstein? So we're going to, the first motion will be to approve or deny a minor subdivision and lot consolidation with the following waivers. Minimum rear yard setback, maximum impervious coverage, maximum floor area ratio, minimum buffer from residential for lot 12.01, and waiver for the requirement to provide landscape island for lot 16, new lot 16.02. So that would be the first motion, either to approve, deny, or approve with those waivers. All the other things that we talked about come with the site plan.
Ms. Walters, just questioning, you're including the waivers with the subdivision, lot consolidation, and not with the site plan approval?
Yeah, because it's the subdivision that's creating the waivers for lot 12.
Yes, on 12.01.
I see your point. Okay, so the waiver for 16.02 comes with the site plan.
I think that's probably
Okay,
a better way.
so then the 4 waivers for 12.01. Application is PB 1423 SP.
Before we make the motion, anybody have any question from the board, any concerns, anybody, any statement anybody wants to make?
Mr. Kenny, can I ask you a quick question? I heard that one person was in to examine the record earlier today. How many other people came in?
Just one.
Just one. Okay. And you've had those records for application?
I'm sorry, please.
April 8th. Okay, thank you.
Just to provide guidance to the board members here. Just asking the question to Mr. Aaron, to provide guidance to the board members, what we heard testimony from the applicant and professionals, whether this application meets the redevelopment criteria and conforms to that or not. Just provide guidance.
I'll just recap the testimony by the applicant. Each of the applicant's professionals was that each of the considerations, site plan, subdivision, traffic, and I'm missing one. It's been a long time. Environmental. All of their professionals' testimony to the board was that, uncontradicted testimony, I have to say, was that the plan is submitted and the testimony provided meets the criteria of the redevelopment plan for the area. And since the applicant is not requesting any variances and they're requesting waivers, you have to take that into consideration.
Thank you. So just for the board members, for the guidance, the application does not require the variances, only the design waivers. So based on that, you will evaluate the application, and whether you deny or approve the application or the motion, you need to provide that reasoning behind it.
Right, so for the subdivision, it's a motion to deny or a motion to approve a minor subdivision and lot consolidation with the 4 waivers that have been repeated for lot 12.01.
So I need a motion or to approve or to deny the subdivision.
Motion to approve.
A second?
Great, because you don't look
This is for the subdivision.
This is for the minor subdivision and lot consolidation.
The minor subdivision, Mr. Fordley, and lot consolidation.
With waivers.
With the waivers. Mr. Fordley,
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman,
Aye.
Mr. Marindola,
Aye.
Mr. Mankey,
Aye.
Mr. Foster,
Aye.
Mr. Stewart,
Aye.
and Mr. Parikh.
Aye.
One for.
All right, so the next motion would be, since the subdivision consolidation was approved, the applicant has an application for preliminary and final site plan with a waiver for lot 16.02 to waive the requirement for the landscape islands, and with the following conditions that were agreed upon by the applicant. Applicant will retain the fence along the property line and repair or replace if damaged or removed. A permanent trash receptacle will be placed within the patio area in accordance with, or subject to the approval of the board's planner. Applicant will add a bicycle rack. The applicant will seek termination of the amended and restated mutual cross easement for access and parking and right of first refusal dated June 24th, affecting lots 1201, 20.01, and 20.02 from the Township Council with the Planning Board's recommendation that that be granted. Signage will be placed at the front driveway indicating the location of handicap access at the rear of the building. The applicant will obtain an easement between the owners of 16.02 and lot 12.01 for use, access, maintenance, repair, and replacement of the basin located on lot 12.01, which will be submitted to the board solicitor for review and approval. And then a recorded copy will be supplied to the board secretary, the director of community development, and the board solicitor. Applicant will, I believe we agreed on the construction easement regarding the modifications to the basin, and we'll work out the details on the block retaining wall design to the satisfaction of the board's engineer. As, in addition to that, the applicant will satisfy or comply with all the comments in the board's professional reports and will obtain all necessary outside agency approvals, including without limitation of Arlington County planning.
I think I have one more.
Yes.
To put the architecture on the side elevations to further enhance them.
They're still working on it. I did turn my paper over, I still have another one. The applicant will supply LSRP reports and the environmental action statement to the board's environmental consultant, as well as the asbestos reports, to the extent that you have them and can provide them.
Yeah, to the extent, and as to the LSRP, to the extent that they're required under applicable law, and the asbestos reports to the extent that they're required.
That's it.
Need a motion to approve or deny the DB 14-23 site plan, preliminary and final site plan.
Motion made by Mr. Marangola,
I'll second.
and second by
Mr. Gordon.
Mr. Corrigan,
Aye.
Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Marangola,
Aye.
Mr. Medina,
Aye.
Mr. Stewart,
Aye.
Mr. Foster,
Aye.
Mr. Bruce.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. It's been a long day, I'm sorry, Mr. Goldstein. I will circulate a draft resolution